Here I'm going to take you through a quick gluteal sequence to improve the strength and stamina of your bottom muscles. Starting with some wide squats. So take your feet wider than hip distance, turning your feet out from the hip, core is engaged, your collarbones are wide across your chest, thinking about the back of the neck being long. So sitting back so the weight is going through your heels, knees following the direction of your toes as you squat down. Lengthen the arms as you go down, bring them back in as you push back up. Keeping the breathing going, so breathing in as you go down, breathing out as you come back up. Shoulders nice and relaxed. So really great exercise to warm up the whole body as well as the gluteal muscles. So we'll do 3 more here. And then the next time we go down, holding at that lowest point that feels comfortable for you. So taking the weight over now to your right. So weight's going through the right heel as you lengthen the left leg and arm back to center. Lovely. So we're taking the weight over to that right heel, thinking about engaging through the gluteals as well as working the thigh muscles. Lovely. It's also a nice stretch for your mid-back area. We'll do 2 more here. And then coming back to center. Over to the other side straight away. So lengthening the right leg and the right arm as we take the weight over through your left heel this time. Keeping the core nice and supportive. Keeping the breathing going. Shoulders relaxed, collarbones wide across your chest. We'll do 2 more on this side. And then back to center, arms are long, and we're just going to do 10 small pulses. So at the bottom of your range, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly lengthening up and bring the legs back under the hips. Rolling down into our box position now for swimming. So a quick posture check, just thinking about that neutral spine position. So tilting back and forth with the pelvis area. Settling in that middle balance point, pushing the mat away with the hands, so checking that you're not collapsing in the chest area. Collarbones nice and wide across the chest. And then we're lengthening through the right leg, so sliding the foot and the leg backwards, and then bring the knee into the chest. So lengthening the leg back. As you bring the knee into the chest, we're curling the upper spine up, similar to our cat movement. So thinking about glute being active as we stretch the leg back. And then as we bring the knee into the chest, we're getting a nice mobility movement into the spine. Keeping your breathing going. Trying to keep the body weight quite central, so there's a tendency for the weight to shift over to the left-hand side when we've got the right leg lifted. So think about bringing that weight back central. Last one on this side, and then lowering the knee down, changing to the other side. So sliding the left foot and leg back, bring the left knee into the chest, lengthening away. So as you bring the knee in, thinking about curving that upper back up towards the ceiling, moving in time with your breath, checking you're not collapsing down into the midsection of your body, so still being aware of your neutral position as you lengthen the leg. Pushing the mat away with the hands, so keeping the chest nice and open, back of the neck long, so your gaze remains down at your mat. Making this last one on this side and lowering the knee down. And coming back over to the right hand side, so stretching the leg away, bring it up to hip height, and then we're going to start to circle the leg, so circling from the hip in one direction. Nice controlled movements. Again, thinking about the spine, so you're keeping that neutral spine position throughout, using those core muscles to keep the trunk of the body nice and stable. Changing direction with the circles. If you're somebody that finds activating your glute muscles quite hard, then having the foot flex throughout these movements can often help you to activate more effectively. So holding at hip height now, and we're bending the knee so the foot is coming up towards the ceiling, and then we're lifting the foot upwards. So squeezing the bottom muscle to lift the foot up and lower back down. Core nice and active, back of the neck long. Again, checking that body weight hasn't shifted over, so bring it back centrally if it has. We'll do 3 more here. And then lengthening the leg or just bringing it back down. Straight over to the left side now, so lengthening the left leg, sliding it back, lifting to hip height, and then starting with circles on this side. So circling from the hip, core active, thinking about that mind-muscle connection, so thinking about using your bottom muscle to create the circle. Chest nice and open, back of the neck long. Using these deep core muscles to stabilize the midsection of your body. And then changing the circles to go the other way. Breathing throughout. We'll do 2 more circles in this direction. And then bending the leg, so the foot's coming up towards the ceiling, squeezing that glute muscle to lift the foot up towards the ceiling, and then lower. So timing your breath, so on the harder part of the movement where you're lifting, you're breathing out, breathing in as you lower. Core nice and strong, checking you've not shifted the body weight over to your right hand side, trying to bring it back a bit more centrally if you feel like you have. So do 3 more here. And then we're lengthening the leg back, sliding it in, so bringing the knee back under the hip again. Taking the knees a little wider apart as you sit back into your child's pose, stretching the arms forward. Breathing into the rib cage area. Next, coming down to your side for the clam, lying up against an imaginary wall behind you so your feet, bottom and shoulders are all in line. We're lengthening the top waist away, so pushing the hip away from you, and then slightly angling that hip down towards the carpet. So imagining you've got headlights on the hips that are shining onto the floor in front of you. Squeezing the seat bones together as you lift the knee, keeping the feet connected throughout the movement, and then lowering back down. So you can keep the feet on the floor for this one, or you can lift the feet to hip height, continuing with the same movement. So core nice and active, Thinking about keeping that slight lift under your lower waist as you lift the knee. If we've got the hand on the floor, we just want the fingertips so we're not using the hand for any kind of support. We can take the hand up onto the hip. Relaxing the upper shoulder, back of the neck long. Nice smooth movement. As we lift the knee, thinking about the hips remaining stacked one on top of the other. We don't want the hip to roll back at all. So the next time we lift the knee, there's the option to lengthen the leg. So top knee lifts, leg lengthens, feet come back together, knee comes down. Keeping the breathing going, thinking about that lift under your lower waist. Upper shoulder, relax, so thinking about the shoulders melting down the back towards your waist. We'll do 2 more here. And then lowering down the knees, lowering down the feet, keeping the bottom leg bent as we lengthen the top leg to hip height. And we're going to lift the leg just towards the ceiling, so lifting from the hip and lowering back down. Remembering if the foot is in that flex position, you might find it easier to activate the glute area. Two more lifts here, and then we're holding at hip height. And we're going to think about creating a figure of 8 movement. So still coming from the hip, but moving the leg in a figure of 8. Hand can be down on the mat supporting. If you've got the balance, you can also take it up onto the hip. Keeping your breathing going. Checking if you've still got that feeling of lift under your lower waist. Upper shoulder relaxed. Making this your last figure of 8. And then bending the top leg down. Lengthening the bottom leg as you take the top knee down onto the floor. So stretching out the top hip area. Straight over to the other side for the clam now. So again, thinking about that imaginary wall behind you. And then pushing the top hip away, creating that lift into your lower waist. Angling it slightly forward. Connecting the feet as you lift the knee, thinking about the seat bones slightly squeezing together, so drawing them together. Keeping that lift under your lower waist throughout the movement. Again, on this side, there's the option to keep the feet on the floor or bring the feet up to hip height. So it is a more challenging movement if you bring the feet up to hip height, and we really want to make sure that you still got that muscle activating and that your hips aren't going to roll back as you lift the knee. You might feel different one side to the other, so it doesn't mean that you have to do the same movement on one side just because you did it previously on the other side. Keeping the breathing going. Upper shoulder nice and relaxed, so not holding tension anywhere in the body. So the next time we lift the knee, we're going to lengthen the leg. So then bring the feet back together and then bring the knee down to meet the other knee. Knee lifts, leg lengthens, feet back together, knee down. Keeping that lift under the lower waist throughout the movement. If you feel that your hips start to roll back or you're really pressing the waist area down into the mat, then it'd be better to stick with just the knee lift rather than lengthening the leg. We'll do 2 more on this side. And then lowering the knee down, lowering the feet down, keeping that bottom leg bent as we lengthen the top leg to hip height. So taking that top leg up to hip height, and then we're lifting the leg up towards the ceiling, lowering back to hip height. Lovely, upper shoulder nice and relaxed, back of the neck long. Breathing out as we lift, breathing in as we lower. And then holding the leg at hip height. So we're going to go into our balance challenge, so figure of 8s. We can have the hand, the fingertips resting lightly on the floor. You can take the hand up onto the hip if you're feeling quite balanced. Thinking about the movement coming from the hip area so the leg stays nice and straight. Using those deep core muscles to stabilise and to keep that feeling of lift under your lower waist. Upper shoulder relaxed. Making this figure of 8 your last one. And then bending the knee back in. Taking the top knee down onto the floor as you lengthen the bottom leg. Taking some nice deep breaths in. Rolling onto your back now for the shoulder bridge. So starting in the Pilates rest position, tilting the pelvis back and forth. And then the next time we tilt backwards, squeezing the bottom muscles as we start to peel the spine, lower spine, middle spine, then upper spine, away from the mat, coming up to that ski slope position. Breathing in, breathing out as you connect each vertebrae back down, one at a time, onto the mat. There's the option to bring in the arms this time. So floating the arms up in time with the hips if you want a bit more of a challenge. Thinking about that core supporting you throughout, nice and strong, and then rolling back down to the mat. Back of the neck remains long. And then the next time we come up, we're going to hold at this top ski slope position. Thinking about opening up the hips, imagine someone's drawing your knees away from you. Quick check of your rib cage area, so check that your ribs aren't flaring out, so just slightly tucking under, rib cage melting down towards your hip bones. And then we're going to dip down on the right hand side, so lowering the right hip, squeezing the right glute to come back up over to the other side. So making sure that you come back up to that top ski slope position. So pushing up a bit higher, core nice and active. Lovely, so isolating one side, coming back up, and then the other side. If you feel like your hips are really starting to drop down, then you can have the arms supporting by just lowering them back down to the mat. So do one more hip dip on each side, and then we're going to hold at that top position still. So squeezing both muscles, squeezing both sides, holding at that top position for 10. So squeezing as hard as you can. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then slowly starting to roll back down. Bring the arms down in time with the body, and then we're hugging the knees in towards your chest, gently rocking from side to side, so nice release for your lower back area. Feet back down to the mat, and then taking the right foot up onto the left thigh, so lower leg on the right hand side on the left thigh, and then reaching to hold the left thigh. So if you're quite tight in this area, you can always move next to a wall to rest the left foot on the wall. If you're quite flexible, you can use the right elbow to gently push the right knee away, so that gives a bit more of an opening stretch around the hip area. Breathing into the stretch. And then releasing the left thigh, taking the foot down, followed by the right foot, changing over to the other side. Relaxing the shoulders back, breathing into the ribcage area, noticing the ribcage expanding onto the back of the mat behind you as you breathe in. Enjoying the stretch after all the hard work that you've done. And then lowering the foot down, followed by the other foot. Hugging the knees into the chest one more time. And then releasing the legs.